Everyone has an opinion about Canadian federal politics.
Oh, yeah.
I think our leader, Trudeau, I don't think I've ever heard him say a true word.
Oh, hello. Do you have a warrant to be here?
Oh, yeah.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
Wiggle and squirm as you might, it is really hard to put lipstick on a pig.
When I'm Prime Minister, I will keep my promises.
WTF.
Here.
I know this place is where I am. No other place is better. No matter where I go, I am proud to be Canadian. I am, you know I am. The worst that works.
The one we call Canadian.
Gentlemen, lead me aboard.
Hey gang, what's up? Just Ehren right here, Canadian Looney. Good afternoon. We're gonna jump into some committee stuff. We've got a pretty interesting video. This one is from Friday. We're gonna take a peek at that old nut, Lena Diab. She's the worst chair of all the committees. I'm certain of it. She's a disaster. In this one, we have Larry Brock, Philip Lawrence, Tom Van Popta, a whole bunch of liberal scum. Like, all the MPs are coming out with these ridiculous points of order, not letting Larry express himself. It's going to be fun to watch. Take a quick chance now to say hello to the people that showed up early. We've got Data Center. How you doing? Captain Kirk, Mrs. Sheila, good to see you guys today. Canada RV, what's shaking, baby? We've got... who else do we have? I saw True Blue in here. What's up, 104? We've got Harry Taint. What's up, buddy? Scott Campbell, my man. What's shaking? Joe Duracell. What's shaking, baby? How you doing today? Gus Papas. Good day, good day. Sylvain Robert. What's going on? Good to see you. Yeah, so we're just going to jump into this committee video. It's a pretty wild one. This Lena Diab really is an issue, guys. Like, she's crazy. She's always tweaking out. Like, it's embarrassing to watch. Anyways, we're going to jump right in. Let's get her going.
Before I pick up where I left off, I would like clarification on how long we will be here, and that'll inform how I'm going to sort of carry forward for the next little while.
So what I can tell you is we have resources till 11:30 tonight, and what happens will depend on the committee. I'm at the discretion of the committee.
Mm-hmm. Okay, 11:30. So if my math is correct, it's another 11 hours that we hadn't. That was a gift to this committee. Really, we weren't expecting it, you know, the Liberals are asking for an extension of 30 days, which would have been 8 meetings, times 2 would be 16 hours. Well, we have 11 hours tonight. And if it's so urgent to go ahead with this study, why aren't we using this time more productively by having witnesses?
You're here.
I think that we've submitted names of witnesses, and quite a while ago, and for some reason or another, those witnesses have never been asked to come here. And now we're asking for, the Liberals are asking for an extension of time to listen to witnesses. Why didn't we do it right now? I just find it very frustrating. So where I left off, I was, you know, and Madam Chair, I wonder if you could read the motion again that is actually being debated to help us focus.
Certainly. So the motion that we are on reads as follows. And it was, the notice of motion was dated October 7, 2020. Wow, it was a month ago. That the committee request an extension of 30 sitting days to the period of committee consideration for Bill C-270.
Okay, good, thank you. So just a simple motion, extend for 30 days. That motion was made 30 days ago. How many meetings have we had since then that we could have had witnesses? And now we have another 11 hours and still no witnesses here. I think the Liberals are just playing games. I don't know what their end game is here, what their objective is here, but we're just wasting a lot of time. Unproductive use of this committee's efforts. To pick up where I left off, I was, in response to that motion for an extension of 30 days, I was going through the schedule of events of this committee for the last 6 months, trying to understand how we got to this point where we are now in a crisis where we need an extension of 30 days to deal with our business. Why didn't we deal with it before? And I was making the point, for those benefit of those who are new to this committee today, the bill that is the subject of the debate, once we get going on it, once we get witnesses here, will be Private Members Bill C-270, which was referred to this committee on May 8th, so 6 months ago. Why do we need another 30 days? What are we going to do in those 30 days that we could have done in the first 6 months that have passed in the meantime? And I'm not going to belabor the point, but just to give a little bit of background to those who weren't part of the discussion yesterday, we had, and I'm doing it for the benefit of those who are gracing us with their presence today, and I really appreciate them all coming on all sides of the House. On May 8th, we were engaged in two very important studies. One was on anti-Semitism, and the other was on Islamophobia. The anti-Semitism study was on a proposal from the Liberals, and we, on the Conservative side of this table, we agreed to that because we think it was very important, given what was happening on, particularly on university campuses.
One moment. Honestly, please, I'm sorry, I have to look at something. MP Lawrence, and can we not have a lot of distraction? Just, you know, for your colleagues' sake as well. Thank you very much. MP Van Popta, please, you have
Thank
the floor.
you. So,
Madam Chair.
Oh, excuse me, I think I heard someone say point of order. Yes, Mr. Biddle.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. The rules don't provide for repetition, and if Mr. Van Popta is just going to reread what he read last time, this is a continuation of the meeting, not the new meeting. He needs to move on to new materials. I know he said he didn't want to belabor the point, but it looks like he's belaboring. If he's going to repeat, it's not in accordance with the rules, and needs to move on to something relevant and new and to carry on, or to go down onto the next person on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. I think Mr. Van Popta is aware of the rules, and he's been very collegial to work with, and I think he understands that.
Yeah, thank you. I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm just saying that we were undertaking two very important studies at the time. So we could not get into the study on Bill C-270 immediately. I get that. I appreciate that. I understand that. The the first 6 meetings on these 2 studies went very well when we listened to witnesses. And that brought us to the end of the sitting before the summer break. We had an opportunity to have a meeting with the analysts to give drafting instructions. We told them to go ahead, prepare both reports, have them available to us when the session begins again in September. And indeed, they did that. Very well-written reports. But then it became frustrating, Madam Chair. And I know all of these meetings were in camera, reading through the reports, analyzing them, drafting them. So I'm not going to give any particulars at all about what happened there, but suffice it to say that there were 5 meetings on each one. And this is after our very professional analysts drafted excellent reports. Why did it take that long? And, you know, I've been thinking about that a lot. And, you know, this committee is made up mostly of lawyers. Not all of us, some of us had the advantage of never having gone to law school, but most of us are lawyers, and I suppose we like the sound of our own voices and, you know, testing out our ability to argue our points of view. And those meetings dragged on and on and on. But I think that there was a second reason why those meetings went so long, and that is on the Liberal side of this table. It was a different bench depending on which topic we were discussing. When we were discussing the anti-Semitism report, we had one group of Liberals. When we were discussing the Islamophobia report, there was a different bench of Liberals. And we were more or less alternating back and forth, you know, first anti-Semitism, then Islamophobia. And it became abundantly clear to us on this side of the table.
Point of order.
Yes. Mr. Biddle, yes.
I don't know the relevancy of questioning the legitimacy of members to appear, and especially Jewish and Muslim members to appear at a committee on topics of Islamophobia and anti-Semitism, and it's truly disgusting. A, it's not relevant. B, it's disgusting to suggest that their presence delayed the study of this bill. And I'm hoping Mr. Van Popte can get to something relevant. I know he doesn't want Mr. Viersen to testify. Perhaps as a compromise, we can meet this coming week after Remembrance Day with Mr. Viersen starting the study. We could probably finish it next week, or even call him this afternoon. I'm sure he'd be happy to zoom in, and we'd be happy to hear from him. He's the first sponsor of a bill I've ever heard that didn't want to appear on his bill, but it's truly disgusting what Mr. Van Popte is getting into in terms of questioning the whether members can appear and whether bringing their own perspectives as Muslims and Jewish members of caucus to this bill is delaying time. It's truly disappointing.
No.
Mr. Van Popte is better than that.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle, and I'm sure Mr. Van Popte, I guess I shouldn't be putting words in his mouth, but the fact that we did the 2 studies, all members of the committee were in consensus with doing the 2 studies and meeting on the dates that we met. When we heard from witnesses, 3 meetings each that you have already alluded to last meeting, and the clerk has all the time frames, 3 meetings for each study for each of the 2 panels for the witnesses, and then the subsequent in-camera meetings when we came back in the fall. And so I think point well taken, Mr. Biddle. No member should have any issues with that. It was agreed to by everybody on the committee that would be done. If it helps the committee, in terms of witnesses or not, there were no witnesses received until November 1st was the first time that any witnesses were sent to the clerk. And at that point in time, the clerk contacted me as the chair, and he alerted me that there was just no way to send anything to them this week because there was just no time to do that. Furthermore, he also alerted me and was sort of questioning, which is why we were also here, as to It's never been in his 20-plus years experience that the witness of a PMB does not appear first. And so he was actually waiting for that appearance to be made as well first. So just to be clear on the facts, and I don't think anybody's has any issue with the facts, because the facts are the facts and the dates are the dates. But I will now, Mr. Van Popta, go back to you for your remarks.
Good, thank you. Just in response to Mr. Biddle's intervention, nobody on this side of the table had any objection to who appeared at the meetings. And they were all active participants and added value to the discussion. Just would underline that. But there was a problem stemming from what certainly appeared to us that the two groups were not having conversations with each other. And the analysts did their best to create some sort of concordance between the two reports, and that took time. And now we are at a place where we are running against the clock. I appreciate what you said, Madam Chair, that the potential witnesses hadn't been invited until recently, or the list hadn't been made available until more recently. I wasn't expecting that this would have been done in September, but surely in the last 4 to 6 weeks we could have found a way to start on this very important study and to get the witnesses here. So I want to read just briefly to get into the substantive part of Bill C-270, what it is all about. So the summary of the bill reads as follows. This enactment amends the criminal code to prohibit a person from making, distributing, or advertising pornographic material for commercial purposes without having first ascertained that at the time the material was made, each person whose image is depicted in the material was 18 years old or older and gave their express consent to their image being depicted. So two things, an age requirement and a consent requirement, keeping in mind that people underage can't actually give consent. So I personally, I'd never thought too much about the topic, but I was eager to get into the study. I did sit in on one of the private members' bill was debated twice in second reading, once on April 7th, once on April 9, and once on May 7. And I sat in for part of the May 7, I believe it is, debate. And I heard some stories about victims and survivors. And I became very interested in the topic. And in reading Hansard of these two private members' bill hours of debate, I felt a sense of multi-party cooperation on an issue that is so important to all of us. Preventing children from being exploited sexually online and to stop uploading and distribution of non-consensual images. I felt a sense of cooperation between all the speakers. As I said, I was there for only one of them, but I read all the speeches from both hours of debate. So I just want to highlight a couple of them. So MP Rempel Garner, who happens to be a co-sponsor of Bill C-270, had this to say on April 9th. I'm pleased to hear the multipartisan nature of debate on these types of issues, and that there is at least a willingness to bring forward these types of initiatives to committees to have discussion. MP Garrison from the NDP on that same day made this positive comment about the initiative being brought forward by this private member's bill. He said, it is also important to remember that whatever we do here to make our laws more effective at getting those who are profiting from these images, that is really what this bill is aimed at. And I salute the member for Peace River Westlock for that singular focus, because I think that is really key. And I want to quote from MP LaRouche of the Bloc Québécois. And it's important to note that she also chairs the all-party parliamentary group to end modern slavery and human trafficking. So she has a long track record of being interested in this topic and advocating for victims. She had this to say: "Let us not forget that these online porn companies are headquartered in Montreal. The fact that our country is home to mafia-style companies that profit from sexual exploitation is nothing to be proud of." I would say, Madam Chair, that that is an understatement. That's an embarrassment for us. The New York Times picked up a story on this, and the world now knows that Canada, with the mafia-style companies, are headquarters for child pornography. And I applaud those who are fighting to combat that. Even the Liberals supported this private member's bill at second reading, but with serious reservations. And this is what MP Maloney had to say, and I believe that he is online. So I'm going to quote my friend and colleague, Mr. Maloney. He had this to say: "I want to say at the outset that the government will be supporting this bill, Bill C-270, at second reading, but with serious reservation." He then pointed out that this Bill C-270 was in response to a 2021 report to the Commons of the House Commons Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. And that committee, the Ethics Committee, commenced that study at least partially in response to the New York Times story that had run earlier in that year, or might have been the previous year. And I just want to read a couple of pieces from that report because I think it is very relevant to what we're talking about today. I'm not going to belabor the point because the report is available for anybody to read. But this is just a couple of paragraphs from the summary of that report. "Recent reports regarding the presence of child sexual abuse material and other non-consensual content on the adult platform Pornhub led the House of Commons Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics to undertake a study on the protection of privacy and reputation on online platforms such as Pornhub. This study gave the committee a window into the world of adult websites and how their content moderation practices have failed to protect the privacy and reputation of individuals online." This is a Canadian company. Going on, the next paragraph. "The committee had heard harrowing accounts from survivors who had had images and videos of themselves uploaded to the Pornhub website without their consent. Some were minors, some were adults. All encountered difficulties in having these images and videos taken down. The committee also heard from the executives of MindGeek and Pornhub, who told the committee that they have appropriate practices in place and are constantly striving to improve their measures. I, for one, do not believe that. And certainly the investigation that this committee undertook and the conclusions that they came to would underline that as well. And I just want to read actually one of the recommendations. Recommendation number 2. And this is 2 of 14 recommendations. So I really am not belaboring the point. I'm just picking up on some of the highlights, some of the important things to set a context for what we're talking about today. Recommendation number 2, concerning the duty to verify age and consent. That the Government of Canada mandate that content hosting platforms operating in Canada require affirmation from all persons depicted in pornographic content before it can be uploaded, that they are 18 years old or older and that they consent to its distribution, and that it consult with the Privacy Commissioner of Canada with respect to the implementation of such obligation. And that, Madam Chair, recommendation number 2 from that 2021 report from the Ethics Committee forms the foundation of the private member's bill that is before us now. And that is the point that Mr. Maloney was making in his speech in the House on May 7th. Now, Another quote from Mr. Maloney's speech was a good speech, and it's worth quoting from. But it also tells us what is in the mindset of the Liberal members of this committee and of the party. This recommendation responds to ongoing concerns that corporations like Pornhub have made available pornographic images of persons who did not consent or were underage. I want to recognize and acknowledge that this conduct has caused those depicted in the material extreme suffering. I agree that we must do everything that we can to protect those who have been subjected to such trauma and to prevent it from happening in the first place. Yes, indeed, do everything that we can, except don't call witnesses. Witnesses could have been here today.
Point of order.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Maloney?
If Mr. Van Popta is continuing to interpret what I said, let me be very clear. What I was trying to say is, yes, it's an important bill. Yes, it should be studied by this committee. And yes, Mr. Viersen should be here to explain it to us. It was nothing more complicated than that.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney, for that. Mr. Van Popta.
Good, thank you. Well, I would take the opportunity just to point out once again that we could have witnesses here today. Whether or not Mr. Viersen appears, we could have witnesses here today. There are a lot of important witnesses that we could hear from, that would give valuable testimony that would help inform our report back to the House of Commons. But again, today we are failing to take that opportunity. So what the sense that I have is that the Liberals do not like Bill C-270. They voted in favor for second reading to send it to committee, but with serious reservations. So what are some of those reservations? I'm just going to continue here with some more Mr. Maloney's comments. And I just want to underline, Mr. Maloney, it was a good speech. It was well researched and useful information in it. We might just disagree on the direction that we should be going. He said, individuals who informally make or distribute pornographic material of themselves and of people that they know are unlikely to verify age by examining legal documentation. They are also unlikely to secure formal written consent. It concerns me that such people would be criminalized by the bill's proposed offenses, where they knew that everyone implicated was consenting and of age merely because they did not comply with the regulatory regime. Well, so I think this is what we're getting to the heart of their objection. They think that it is a regulatory scheme, that it's not going to work, and also they prefer Government Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, which picks up on some of the direction that the private members bill that is before us today is taking. But it, too, creates a regulatory scheme. So, you know, we don't like your regulatory scheme. We prefer our regulatory scheme. You know, is that what it's coming down to? And I think that this is a good point to just talk about what a couple of the witnesses said who appeared at the Ethics Committee for their study in 2021, which goes right to the point that I'm making here. So this is witness number one, unidentified. And she had this to say: when I was 24, I met someone I thought was a really nice guy. I married him. And as soon as he thought I was stuck, he stopped being nice pretty quickly. In April 2020, I moved away from our home to be safe, and obviously, we're not together anymore. During our relationship, sorry, it's going to go on for just a couple of paragraphs, but I think that this is really important to get on the record to set the context. During our relationship, I had let him take some pictures. I was uncomfortable at first because I had never been in any picture like that, but I trusted him, and I wanted to keep him happy. It wasn't until August 2020 that I discovered these private photos had been uploaded to porn sites, including Pornhub. So here I want to make the point, Madam Chair. She was of age, and she gave consent, but not for what he did with it later. So he would have had a defense against a bill that the Liberals are suggesting would be better than Bill C-270. She went on, I was upset about the photos, But it was about to get worse. Finding the photos led me to a video. I did not know the video existed. I found out about it by watching it on Pornhub. I don't want to get into the details. It was quite distasteful, but she was drugged. In any event, she was asleep. She had no recollection of it, and she was filmed in, just trying to find a polite way to say it, right in a compromised position. And this is what was on the internet. It was all over the internet. It was taken by her husband. She was of age. She had consented to some form of photos, but not to that, and not to the uploading on Pornhub. She goes on. My video had been uploaded August 2017. So by that time, I found out I had been active on Pornhub for over 3 years. I had no idea. And then she made a comment about Pornhub and sites like that. Sexual assault is not an anomaly on the porn sites. It is a genre. This leaves little incentive for those sites to moderate such content. To give an idea of the scope of the spread, as early of January 2021, after the December purge, and after the RCMP had removed a bunch for me, Googling the name of my Pornhub video still returned 1,900 results. Thanks to Pornhub, today is day 1,292 that I have been naked on these porn sites. So this is what we are trying to fight. This is what Private Members Bill C-270 is all about. We think it is worth fighting for. Now, another objection from the Liberals is that the Private Members Bill is apparently, it is not consistent with the basic principles of criminal law, in that it does not require mens rea. Now, most of us are lawyers here, but for those who aren't, mens rea is just the Latin term for the mental element of a crime. Not only must the Crown prove that an event happened, the Crown also has to prove that the person who caused the event to happen, the criminal event, had a guilty mind about it, knew that what they were doing was wrong. And then they go on, for example, that the accused knew or was reckless as to whether those depicted in the pornographic material did not consent or were not of age. Well, in response to that, I'm going to just read something from another person who appeared before the same ethics committee, and again known only as witness number 2. This is what she had to say. Again, just a few paragraphs. I'm now 19 years old. I was 17 when the videos of me on Pornhub came to my knowledge, and I was only 15 in the videos they've been profiting from, the porn sites. When I was 15, I was extorted by a man who was unknown at the time into sending massive amounts of videos and images of me. Why she did that, probably not very wise, but she did it. And then 2 years later, she said this is the first time I had any knowledge of being on their site. During this time, I stopped eating and leaving the house, and I was even considering suicide. I started getting hundreds of follow requests daily on my social media accounts and at least 50 messages a day sending me links of videos of me on Pornhub. That's when I realized that my name and social media had been posted alongside the videos.
Mr. Van Popta, one moment. We have a point of order. Mr. Biddle.
In saying that the victim wasn't very wise, is Mr. Van Popta blaming the victim? Are we really getting into this for a filibuster, that we're blaming victims for the crimes that are committed against them?
Mr. Biddle wants to
If you're going to delay this bill, at least have the decency not to blame the victims.
Well, tell him to wait
Whoever's
for his
heckling me, I
time.
can't hear you in sync.
That's not a point.
You're going to have to yell a little louder than that. Sounds like Mr. Brock, who's defending his friend, who's blaming victims. This is unbelievable that in a filibuster, the Conservatives would engage in this. I thought they...
He's so woke, guys. Biddle is so woke. These liberals are annoying to watch, eh? No doubt. This guy's a fool.
Pretended to care about victims.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. Monsieur, oui,
Yeah,
Monsieur Drouin.
I sit and I have to have the opportunity and the pleasure of sitting with Mr. Brock on public accounts, and he knows very well the chair at public accounts will not allow any reading when members are filibustering, any reading from any material. I'm just wondering, are we applying the same rules? And I'm sure that Mr. Brock would object to the same, would follow the same rules to every committee meeting that we appear. So I'm just wondering, is this the standard here, or are we applying different standards at other committees? Because Mr. Brock knows very well this is what we are, but it happens to be a conservative chair, so maybe the rules are different.
So
same point of order.
That's a point. I'm willing to suspend to look into that. Mr. Brock?
Well, that may be the practice in that particular committee that Mr. Drouin references. I stand corrected if I am wrong, but I don't believe that is a standing order. Perhaps the clerk can weigh in on that. It has been customary by you, Madam Chair, to allow some flexibility in terms of how we present, in terms of whether knowledge is readily available in one's mind, or simply are they refreshing their memory by using material before them. I think the danger is you just don't want to have a member reading verbatim for hours on end simply to waste time. And I don't believe Mr. Van Popta has been doing that at all from what I've heard and seen so far today, and his brief intervention yesterday. But ultimately, Madam Chair, you are the chair of this particular committee. You can set your own rules, and you've done a very good job of finding that fine balance. And just because a chair in another committee does something differently doesn't necessarily mean that that is a precedent to be followed at every parliamentary committee.
Thank you, MP Brock. I actually appreciate those words. Give me a couple of minutes, please, and before I do, yes, MP Drouin?
Just on that.
Just because I'm not in public accounts,
okay.
and so I would like to...
There's just standing orders, and I want to thank Mr. Brock for providing me with a great quote, because I will bring this up with our chair, but chairs normally would chair their meeting fairly the same way across committees. Committees are bound by standing orders, and standing...
This Frank Drouin is a little tattletale. Like, he's the guy that's like the teacher's pet that rats on all his friends. He is a scumbag. I don't understand why the Liberals continue to put themselves voluntarily in front of the camera, because when Canadians see them, we don't like you. You're trash. Like, Lord. I'm not going to get too wound up, but Frank Drouin is an annoying little teacher's pet skank. It's just gross.
Orders and the tous les comités qui opèrent dans ce Parlement.
And all committees working in this Parliament must obey the same standing orders. There is no special order or rule for one committee or the other. I quite agree with that. So I will take a few minutes.
Simply to confer with the clerk. Thank you.
Give me a moment, guys. We'll get through this.
And not be too repetitive. and certainly keep it on the topic at hand and not go off the topic too much, Mr. Van Popta. So please continue.
Good, thank you.
And Mr. Drouin, I think you can take that at the Public Accounts Committee. I guess if there's anything else for next time, I would certainly love to entertain a lot more on that, because I think it might be helpful to keep things a bit more in order and make things go a bit more quicker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I look forward to Mr. Brock's support at Public Accounts.
I'm sure he will support you. Mr. Van Popta, please.
100%, my friend. 100%.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. And just to that point about reading documents or not, I was reading quotes from testimony, and I thought it was important to get the words in as as the witnesses had testified in their own words. I was not reading from any other documents, other than I did read 2 paragraphs out of the Ethics Committee report, which I think was important to get on the record to frame what we're talking about today. I want to just highlight what one other witness said to the committee. She actually had a name, Serena. And I won't read it, but I will just summarize very quickly. She was a young girl, elementary school, maybe middle school, at her new school. She had a boyfriend, under a lot of pressure to film herself undressing. And so, yeah, she gave consent at the time. She wasn't old enough to give consent, but she did give consent, but not for what he did with it. For a few dollars, he sold it to a porn site, and the story goes on for several years, and how she fought and fought and fought for her dignity and her protection. She was a grade A student until this happened, and she almost failed going through high school. She transferred to a different school. By the time that she got there, she thought she might be safe. No, everybody at the new school already knew what had happened. That was the nature of the internet. There's no protection for victims like this, and that is why this bill is so important. This bill would prohibit the posting and the commercialization without prior consent in writing from the person depicted in the videos. I think it is a good bill. I think that everybody should support it. So we know that there has been criticism of this bill from the Liberals, and I know that once we get into the debate of the bill itself, that I'm sure that we'll hear more of that. They voted yes at second reading, but intending to gut it. Serious reservations is what they're saying. And I believe that what they want is a watered-down bill to come back to the House, one that they can vote for, but which won't have any teeth. And the last thing that they want is for this bill to come back to the House unamended, because I believe that they will vote against it, which politically is going to be very, very difficult for them to do. So the way I see it, there are 3 options. Number 1, we get their 30-day extension, which we're saying is not necessary. The Liberals have mismanaged the legislative agenda, not only here but also in the House, and now they're trying to buy extra time. And I'm saying that we could have had witnesses the last couple of weeks already, the last couple of meetings already. We could certainly have them right now. They can let the 60-day deadline pass, but then the bill will go back to the House unamended. They don't want that. Or they can prorogue Parliament to get rid of this problem, together with get rid of some other problems that have been caused by their inability to manage the legislative agenda, both in committee and in the House. Or there's a 4th option, and that's the one that I would recommend, and that is that the Prime Minister takes a walk over to the Governor General's mansion, ask for her to dissolve this Parliament so that we can go ahead and have election, and let the people decide who is right. With that, Madam Chair, I'm going to cede the floor. But I will have more to say later on, but I know that some of my colleagues also want to speak, so thank you.
Thank you
can
very
put my
much.
name on the list.
Thank you very much, Mr. Van Papta. We will now go to MP Brock.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
MP Giovanni, I've taken his name off. He's not in the room. If he enters again, we can put it back subsequently. So MP Brock.
Yes, so I think I will start my my intervention by recapping some of the important points and areas that I've heard from my colleagues yesterday and today. And I think the most important point that I wish to reiterate for what I trust to be a number, thousands of Canadians who are following this and watching this particular committee, and I'll give them advance notice that this committee potentially sits to 11:30 p.m. this evening. The important point that I wish to make, and this is following up on my colleague Mr. Van Popta's earlier interventions, is that there is an overriding theme that is being developed here. And it's not being propagated and it's not being established by any other party other than the Liberal Party of Canada, supported by their coalition partners, the NDP. Because if they truly cared about victims, and I intend on going through some legislative history over my 3+ years as a parliamentarian, which demonstrates the complete opposite of empathy towards victims in this country. They would not be engaging in this particular position that they are taking. This is nothing more than political gamemanship. It is partisanship and, quite frankly, petty politics, which I find extremely disgusting. As Mr. Van Popta pointed out, that this particular bill reached our committee before we recessed for the summer, this past summer in 2024, in June of 2024. We returned to Parliament in mid-September, and committees resumed towards the end of September. And while the committee, the Justice Committee, has been studying two important reports regarding the rise of both anti-Semitism and Islamophobia, Bill 270 was always waiting in the wings. And you, Madam Chair, would often bring it up from time to time. I'm also mindful of the fact we had many meetings over the course of 2+ months that ended early. Some meetings didn't actually happen at all. I can't say with any degree of confidence that all the meetings that have been scheduled for justice since we returned this past fall have been utilized effectively in terms of utilizing all the resources that we had available to us. So here we are now with a looming deadline that we were all made aware of months ago, weeks ago. And not to put too much of a fine point on it, Madam Chair, but the Conservative Party of Canada submitted a significant list of witnesses, subject matter experts in this particular area. That was last Friday. In that interim, we had a meeting on Monday. We had a meeting yesterday. We're meeting today. Perhaps we're meeting again next week. But there is absolutely no sense, no urgency, no direction from this committee that this committee is prioritizing the hearing of witnesses. And when I listen to some Liberal members...
Point of order.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes, I have two on the line with points of order, so please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a correction, Mr. Brock was the one who denied unanimous consent to have us hear witnesses yesterday, starting with Mr. Viersen. So I hope he corrects that in his lengthy commentary that's about to follow about us being the ones blocking things, since he denied unanimous consent.
Thank you. And I will now hear MP Maloney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to make the same point as Mr. Biddle, but I will add to it that it's inaccurate to say that there's been no sense of urgency on the part of the Liberal members of this committee. We've been trying to move this bill forward on the agenda for some months. If there's any lack of urgency, it's on the other side. And now there's total obstruction because they're just refusing to proceed because they do not want Mr. Viersen to speak at this committee, Mr. Van Pop to address the issue of having an election, which raises the question, are they going to hide Mr. Viersen and prevent him from running in that election whenever it may take place?
On that point of order, Madam Chair.
Mr. Lawrence?
Inaccuracies are not a point of order. They are a point of debate. Because if they were, in fact, a point of order, I would be constantly pointing of ordering whenever a Liberal spoke. Thank you.
So on those points, I think it's a matter of factual information, and a number of times, I guess it's incumbent on me as the chair, with the help of the clerk, to ensure that members have the accurate dates of where things have happened and how they happened, and if I need to, over the course of the testimony, re-say them, I will do that, just
Madam
to
Chair, could you
make
provide
sure
me with
that
the rule? Point of order?
everybody understands the dates.
Could you please provide me with the rule on that?
I'm sorry, Mr. Lawrence?
That the chair has the obligation to correct inaccuracies. Could you please provide me with a rule on that?
Absolutely. The chair has to keep order and decorum and ensure, with the clerk's help and the analyst's help as may be, that the information that stems out of sending notices of meetings and asking for witnesses or whatnot, that the committee members have that information.
I understand that order and decorum are completely necessary, but it does not say anything, or nor did you quote anything with respect to inaccuracies or perceived inaccuracies.
Certainly. Let's suspend for a few minutes. Happy to do that.
Here, guys, we're getting it right back to Larry Brock.
Of this bill without hearing from witnesses. That could have happened as early as Monday. It could have happened yesterday, and it could have happened today. But, and this is the big but, with the assistance of their coalition partners, the NDP, the Liberals are insisting that the Conservatives are silencing one of their own, the sponsor of the bill, Arnold Viersen, which then brings up, and I'm not going to repeat the interventions that I had last Thursday on this particular issue, but I think it's important because we heard at great length yesterday from both Mr. Maloney and Mr. Biddle about the necessity of hearing from Mr. Viersen. And why are we preventing Mr. Viersen from speaking to this bill? As I indicated to committee last Thursday, and I've emphasized this already in my opening remarks, the Liberals, with their NDP partners, want to play petty politics. They don't want to hear from Arnold Viersen because he's a true, passionate pioneer when it comes to advocating for victim rights. If this were any other Conservative member who sponsored this bill, we would be questioning witnesses today. We would have questioned witnesses yesterday. We would have questioned witnesses this past Monday, and I dare say we would have been questioning witnesses as early as last Thursday. No, what they want to do, and when I say they, I'm referring to the Liberal members with the NDP, They want to get on their soapboxes and they want to vilify Mr. Arnold Viersen for his personal views. Case in point, Mr. Maloney, in a Twitter feed, or X feed, I should say, lowered the gauntlet on the 25th of October 2024 when he stated in a tweet, Justice Committee is ready to study Arnold Viersen's private member's bill. We'd like him to appear to speak to the bill before the deadline. Arnold, will you appear? Or is Pierre gagging you because you keep fighting against women's right to choose? Nothing to do about his position regarding victims. What this bill is about, and I will be speaking about the merits of this bill during the intervention. No, Mr. Maloney followed that up with a couple of other tweets, November the 1st. So do you want to hear from Arnold or not? 2 hours of filibuster and Arnold Viersen is still missing in action on his own bill. Conservatives made one thing clear. They're blocking him from talking. Makes you wonder, is it something Arnold said? Doubling down on that earlier tweet. And then yesterday, James Maloney says in a tweet, how far are conservatives willing to go to censor their own team? Entering hour 4 of a conservative filibuster with the sole goal of stopping Arnold Viersen from presenting his own bill at Justice Committee. Free Arnold from CPC Witness Protection Program. Hashtag where's Arnold? Well, you want to hear Arnold's voice? I'm going to be his surrogate, and I'm going to read out Arnold's voice. I'm going to read out into the record his debate at second reading.
Point of order.
One moment, Mr. Brock. Mr. Biddle, please.
Point of order.
Yes,
Madam
you can hear
Chair,
me? Yes.
I don't know. Madam Chair, I don't know if Mr. Brock's going to do an impression of
point of
Mr.
order.
Viersen. He eloquently read Mr. Maloney's points, but he still hasn't addressed why they're hiding Mr. Viersen.
That's not a point of order.
This is
And he can
debate.
read all he wants.
This is
do an
debate.
impression,
Madam Chair,
but
this is debate.
Again, if they're going to
This
yell
is debate.
loud, they have to yell loud enough
This
that
is
I
still
can hear it
debate.
in St. Catharines.
Thank you.
But, Madam
Thank you,
Chair.
Mr. Biddle.
Point of order.
Mr. Keurig?
Thank you.
Oh,
very
wait
much,
a minute.
Madam
You
Chair.
haven't been
Well-
tested. I'm sorry.
Well, I would note that Mr. Biddle's previous point was not a point of order, but rather debate.
Mr. Keurig, we're going to suspend.
For a sound test to ensure that I may.
You see.
Okay, just give me a moment, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. Give me a moment. Let me suspend from Mr. Drowan. No, just give me a moment, please. On the phone.
Actually, no, Tako. He'll be subbing in for Tako for the time being, Mr. Clerk.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Just hold on a minute. I think we're subbing you in to take the place of another member. So just one moment, please.
What's going on?
Very
here, guys?
clear that virtual members are entitled to the same rights and privileges that in-person members are entitled. And as a result, I would ask that regardless of whether or not I am specifically subbed in and whether one is a extra member fulfilling their duties as a member of Parliament, not a regular member of the committee, I would ask to be placed on the speaking list. And but I would just ask, I would note,
So,
I did
Mr.
not hear
Carrick,
the
you're
meeting
trying to make a
gavel
point of order. I'm not sure what it is. You're a member now. You're subbed in, so you're a member. And if you'd like to be placed on the list, that's not a problem.
But just to be clear, I didn't hear you gavel into the meeting. So are we actually in the active proceedings of the meeting, or are we still in a suspended format?
No, we're in the meeting.
Okay, I didn't note, I didn't hear you call it back to order after the previous suspension. I'm glad that my previous point of order about participation was on the record, but I am pleased to be back to justice, and I'm glad to now be on the list. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're very welcome. MP Brock?
Thank you. So to recap, members from the government and the NDP wanted to hear words from Mr. Viersen. This is what Mr. Viersen had to say at second reading. Madam Speaker, imagine being the parent of a teenage daughter who has been missing for months, and somebody discovers 50 explicit videos of that daughter being sexually abused on Pornhub, the most popular porn site in the world. Imagine how one would feel if intimate images of one's sibling was uploaded and Pornhub refused one's request to remove that content. Now imagine if those videos of their exploited loved ones were being monetized and published for profit by Pornhub and were made available to Pornhub's over, now I think this is a typo, it says 130 daily visitors. I would imagine that's probably in the millions worldwide. How would someone feel if Pornhub's only response was an auto reply email? Understandably, one would be outraged. One would be furious. Yet this happens over and over. Survivors, including a 12-year-old from Ontario, have had to seek justice through their own lawsuits because in Canada, the onus is on survivors and on law enforcement to prove, after the material has been uploaded, that the individuals depicted in those videos are either underage or have not consented to their distribution. This is a serious problem that Bill C-270, the Stopping Internet Sexual Exploitation Act, seeks to fix. It's important to note that for years, survivors, child protection agencies, and the police have spoken out about this exploitation. They have not been silent. Survivors have shared how pornographic companies like Pornhub have been profiting from content depicting minors, sex trafficking victims, sexual assault, intimate images, and gender-based violence for years. As early as 2019, companies like PayPal cut ties with MindGeek due to the availability of exploitive and abusive content. In March 2020, a few parliamentarians and I wrote a public letter to the Prime Minister to alert him about the exploitation that was happening on MindGeek. We followed up in November 2020 with a letter to the then Minister of Justice, urging him to ensure that our laws were adequate to prevent women and girls from being exploited by Pornhub. It was the New York Times expose on December the 4th, 2020, in a piece written by Nicholas Kristof that finally got the public's and the government's attention. It was entitled, quote, "The Children of Pornhub. Why does Canada allow this company to profit off videos of exploitation and assault?" End of quote. That article finally kicked off a firestorm of international attention on Pornhub, which is one of many pornographic websites owned by MindGeek, a Canadian company based in Montreal. About a year ago, it was bought and rebranded as ILO by a company called Ethical Capital Partners based in Ottawa. A few days after that article, the House of Commons Ethics Committee initiated an investigation into Pornhub. I joined the Ethics Committee for its study on Pornhub and listened to the harrowing stories of young women who had videos of sexual assaults or intimate content shared without their consent. And I know Mr. Van Popt has shared some of those quotes. Many of these women were minors when the videos were created and uploaded to pornography sites like Pornhub. I want to take a moment to share some of their testimony. Serena Flites, whose story was covered by the New York Times expose, had videos of her at age 13 uploaded by her ex-boyfriend. After that, her whole life came crumbling down. She experienced depression and drug use. She was harassed by people at her school who found her video and sent it to family members. She was blackmailed. She had to pretend to be her mother to have the videos taken down from Pornhub. This was all while she was 13 years old. In the end, she stopped going to school. She told us, quote, "I thought that once I stopped being in the public so much, once I stopped going to school, people would stop re-uploading it. But that didn't happen because it had already been basically downloaded by all the people in the world. It would always be uploaded over and over and over again. No matter how many times I got it taken down, it would be right back up again." End of quote. It basically became a full-time job for her to just chase down those images and to get them removed from Pornhub. Some witnesses appeared anonymously to protect their identities. One witness stated, "I was 17 when videos of me on Pornhub came to my knowledge, and I was only 15 in the videos they were profiting from." She went on to say, "Every time they took it down, they also allowed more and more videos of me to be re-uploaded." That witness also said, "Videos of me being on Pornhub has affected my life so much to the point that I didn't leave my house anymore. I stopped being able to work because I am scared to be out in public around other people." Another survivor who spoke to us at committee is Victoria Galley. As a result of discovering non-consensual images and videos of herself on Pornhub, she completely lost her sense of self-worth, and at times she was suicidal. She told us at committee there were over 8 million views just on Pornhub alone. To think of the amount of money that Pornhub has made off my trauma, date rape, and sexual exploitation makes me sick to my stomach, she added. I have been forced to stand up alone and fight Pornhub. It is a serious failure of our justice system when survivors have to launch their own lawsuits to get justice for the harms caused by companies like MindGeek. This Canadian company has not faced a single charge or consequence in Canada for publishing its videos of exploitation and for profiting from them. This is truly shameful. Last year, a survivor named Aldous Wallace reached out to me. Aldous is a survivor of the 2014 iCloud hack. She is also an award-winning actress, executive producer, artist, and director of Foundation RA. Aldous had photos and videos taken in the 2014 iCloud hack and uploaded onto porn sites like Pornhub, and she fought for years to get them taken down. As a result of this, she told us, I lost followers. I lost everything that you could think of. It was just such a hard time for me. I ended up spending over $1 million over a 3-year span just to get the content taken down on me with no success. They're making so much money off of the non-consensual uploading of images and videos. The re-uploading is also a $1 billion industry, she added. There's still no federal laws. There's barely any laws at all to hold anyone online accountable. There's currently foreign revenge laws, but for people like me, there's nothing. Rachel, a survivor from Alberta, said that it was devastating and that it is going to haunt her for the rest of her life. She said that she will always be someone's porn. I hope every member at this committee lets that sink in. I will always be somebody's porn. Not for a brief period of time, not for months. We're talking for life. I want to point out the incredible courage of Victoria, Serena, and Aldous, Rachel, and many other survivors who have spoken out. In the midst of one of the most difficult moments of their lives, they are fighting back against a $1 billion industry that seeks to profit from their pain and exploitation. I thank Victoria, Serena, Aldous, and Rachel for refusing to back down. I thank them for their courage. I thank them for their relentless pursuit of justice. I would encourage members to listen to their full testimonies, and they can do so at www.siseact.ca. Throughout the Ethics Committee hearings and from the interactions I've had with survivors since, it is clear that this is a common problem. Pornographic companies are publishing and monetizing content without verifying the age and the consent of the people depicted in them. This is particularly a problem for Canada, as many of those websites are hosted here. That is a shameful legacy of this country. Bill 270, the Stopping Internet Sexual Exploitation Act, would stop this. I am going to quote right from the summary of my bill. It states that the SISE Act would prohibit a person, including companies, from making, distributing, or advertising pornographic material for commercial purposes without having first ascertained that at the time the material was made, each person whose image is depicted in the material was 18 years of age or older and gave their express consent to their image being depicted. The SISE Act would also allow individuals to revoke their consent. This is an important part to express the ongoing consent. Finally, the SISE Act would provide for aggravating factors when the material created or published actually depicts minors or non-consensual activity. I am also pleased to share that I consulted on the bill with a variety of child protection agencies, law enforcement groups, and the Canadian Centre for Child Protection to ensure that there are no gaps and that police have the tools to ensure they can seek justice. The heart of this bill is consent. No one should be publishing sexually explicit material without the express consent of everyone depicted in that material. Children cannot consent to exploitation. Victims of sex trafficking and sexual assault cannot consent. Those filmed without their knowledge cannot consent. Yet pornography companies freely publish this content and profit from it because there is no onus on them to verify the age or the consent of those depicted. This is why the second recommendation of the 2021 Ethics Committee report is that the Government of Canada mandate that content hosting platforms operating in Canada require affirmation from all persons depicted in pornographic content before it can be uploaded, that they are 18 years old or older, and that they consent to its distribution, and that it consult with the Privacy Commissioner of Canada with respect to the implementation of such obligation. We have heard from survivors who testified that their images of abuse would not be online if companies like Pornhub had bothered to check for age and consent. Bill 2C70 would fulfill this important recommendation from the Ethics Committee report, and importantly, I should add that this report was unanimously supported by all parties at the Ethics Committee. The recommendation also suggests consulting with the Privacy Commissioner. I'm happy to share with my colleagues that on February 29, 2024, the Privacy Commissioner released its investigation into Pornhub's operator, ILO, formerly MindGeek. The report was initially scheduled to be released on May the 23rd, but it was delayed for over 9 months when MindGeek, or ILO, and its owners, Ethical Capital Partners, took the Privacy Commissioner to court to block the release of that report. The Privacy Commissioner's investigation into ILO, MindGeek, was in response to a woman whose ex-boyfriend had uploaded intimate images of her to MindGeek's website without her consent. The young woman had to use a...
We've got a new member, guys. Cecilia Crocker, thank you very much for signing up. Appreciate it. We're trying to have a great time watching this terrible committee meeting. It's pretty dark in here today, but we're trying to keep it light. Thank you very much for joining up. Part of the gang. It's great.
Professional service to get it taken down and to remove her images from approximately 80 websites where they had been reposted more than 700 times. The report shared how the publishing of the woman's intimate images led to a permanent loss of control of the images, which had a devastating effect on her. It caused her to withdraw from her social life and to live in a state of fear and anxiety. The Commissioner stated, "This untenable situation could have been avoided in many cases had MindGeek obtained direct consent from each individual depicted in content prior to or at the time of upload. Pornhub's own monthly non-consensual content report suggests that non-consensual content is still regularly uploaded and viewed by thousands of users before it is removed. We find that by continuing to rely solely on the uploader to verify consent, MindGeek fails to ensure that it has obtained valid and meaningful consent from all individuals depicted in content uploaded to its websites. Ultimately, the Privacy Commissioner recommended that Pornhub and its owners adopt measures that would verify age and consent before any content is uploaded. I would urge all members to read the Privacy Commissioner's report on Pornhub. While Pornhub and its owners are the biggest pornography company in the world, this bill would ensure that age verification and consent applies to all pornography companies, because whether it is videos of child exploitation, sex trafficking, AI deepfakes, sexual assault, or an intimate encounter filmed by a partner, once a video or image has been uploaded, it is virtually impossible to eliminate. Each video can be viewed and downloaded millions of times within a 24-hour period, starting an endless nightmare for victims who must fight to get those videos removed, only for them to be uploaded again within minutes or hours. Canada must do more to prevent this exploitive content from ever reaching the internet in the first place. I hope I have the support of my colleagues in ending this nightmare for so many and in preventing it for so many more. To the survivors, some of whom are watching today, we thank them. Their voices are being heard. I want to thank the organizations that have supported me along the way in getting this bill to this point. The National Center on Sexual Exploitation, the National Council of Women of Canada, the Ottawa Coalition to End Human Trafficking, the London Abused Women Centre, Defend Dignity, the Vancouver Collective Against Sexual Exploitation, the Salvation Army, Survivor Safety Matters, Foundation RA, Montreal Council of Women, Cease UK, Parents Aware, Joy Smith Foundation, Hope Resource Center Association, Evangelical Fellowship of Canada, Colchester Sexual Assault Center, Sexual Assault and Violence Intervention Services of Halton, and Ally.
So, gang, is this too heavy to be watching? Like, it does seem a little upsetting. It's real heavy stuff. And a little drier than most of Larry's performances. I do find this Lena Diab like entertaining in a weird way. Like, she's useless, but she doesn't seem to think so. She thinks she's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Nut.
And drug. The Montreal Council.
Sorry, gang.
Until the committee has said, in the form of a motion, that I am not to speak unless I'm subbed in. And they have not done that, so I shall stay on the list.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. If the committee decides otherwise, then that's fine. Yep. Oh, so I was reading who's on the list. I think that's all I had. Mr. Kirk, did you have your hand up to be also put on the list? I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. In my initial intervention, I had requested, I think it was about 50 minutes ago.
So I haven't put anyone else, haven't put anybody in since you've been in, so you're on the list now. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
I do appreciate that.
You're very welcome.
Back
Thanks.
in the record, about 45 minutes ago, I'd requested to do so, but I appreciate you and the work that you and the clerk are doing to help keep things running here.
Doing our best. Thanks for appreciating that. So, Mr. Brock, back to you.
So before I was interrupted again by a point of order from Mr. Biddle, I have lost track how many points of order that he has made. And all he has done, Madam Chair, is engaged in debate. So I just telegraphed to Mr. Biddle and his team that the more they stop proceedings and allow me to not continue with my intervention, ultimately it's just going to delay the amount of time that I have set aside. I've got numerous articles that I want to speak to, as well as describing experiences. So see, we have a point of order again.
Just make sure you.
Perhaps
okay, I see the virtual hand.
The first one. Perhaps it's maybe the first
Having
point of order. Not
difficulty recognizing who's trying to get my attention because there's too many of you. So, just please. Please maintain, my role is to try and maintain order as best as I can, so help me out, members. I recognize you're all men, and I am a woman, but just give me a bit of break. The ladies that are in the room are being fabulous, so thank you very much for that. Mr. Biddle, I do recognize your virtual hand, so please go ahead.
Thank you very much. As we have gone through, repetition is not appropriate. Mr. Brock is intentionally repeating himself. Point of orders or not, that's not an excuse. Despite how ashamed and embarrassed he is to have Mr. Beerson come, he cannot be repeating himself, and that is a violation of the standing orders.
Mr. Lawrence, I know you have your hand up. Can I just suspend for a minute or two? I just want to review the rules for a second with respect to extra members, because you are still an extra member. So just give me a moment.
Could I just add, though, we made very clear that it was Mr. Van Popta who was being Mr. Kirk was replacing.
Okay, just give me a minute.
Mr. Lawrence should not have been taken off.
Suspended for a minute.
Ain't she something, guys? I find that Lena Diab, like...
The original,
to
in fact, debate and not points of order. I have yet to hear any direction from you, Madam Chair, who are charged with the responsibility of determining the validity or the lack thereof of points of order. So from this point forward, because if we continue at this pace, perhaps we're going to be here all next week with me continuing my intervention and listening to Mr. Biddle again, trying to debate. He will have the opportunity at some point. I don't even know if his name's on the list. But what he likes to do is to distract, divide, and confuse. That's his game. And that's petty politics.
Yes, I'm under someone's
and that brings me to the original point I was making about the liberal game with respect to this particular study. So I'm asking you, Madam Chair,
go ahead.
to please exercise rulings and determine whether points of order are legitimate or not legitimate. Thank you.
We'll do so. I have Mr. Maloney's hand, and then I have MP Drouin's hand up. So I just would like to hear everybody first. Thank you. I appreciate that. MP Maloney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, I have the greatest of respect for Mr. Biddle. I also have a great deal of respect for Mr. Brock. It is completely unnecessary and totally inappropriate to be casting aspersions at another member and imputing motive. Look, we're all professionals here. What does come to mind is the old saying, pot calling the kettle black. But I think that perhaps Mr. Brock, I know Mr. Brock thinks that relevance is subjective, but if he's going to start asking the chair for rulings on every single intervention, he's going to be interrupted by, more frequently, not only by Mr. Biddle, but by every other member in this committee. The point is, look, I don't think Mr. Biddle is doing anything inappropriate. He is addressing issues of relevance. He's trying to keep his conduct professional, as he always does. And I think Mr. Brock's comments towards him are not only 100% wrong, they're completely inappropriate. And I hope we can rise above that moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maloney. And my list is growing, and it's all on the point of order, so that's great. I'd love to hear them all. I will go with Mr. Drouin, Monsieur Drouin. Après ça, we have...
After Mr. Drouin, we have Mr. Giovanni, and then Mr. Lawrence.
More, but
Madam
please,
Chair,
Mr.
as I
Drouin.
listened attentively to Mr. Brock's argument, I'm just wondering if he could explain to this committee
I don't like Drouin's voice. I don't like anything about him, but I find his voice is piercing. I don't know what it is about it, but yeah, he's scum. So arrogant.
Rationale he was posing in terms of a member making a statement in the House, and therefore they don't need to appear. And I'm just wondering if that was the same logic that the member from Perth Wellington, who spoke on S227 and sponsored S227, and was not afraid to appear before a committee. And I would ask him whether or not he's had a discussion with Mr. John Nader, who had the courage to appear before a committee, a parliamentary committee, to testify on a bill that he's sponsoring himself. I would assume that Mr. Viersen would have the same courage.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm not familiar with the S227, but point taken. MP Giovanni, please.
I think Mr. Brock's point is that the point of order is being abused and being turned into something of an open mic night where people can just chime in however they feel, and Mr. Biddle in particular abusing the virtual aspect of this, where, you know, when he's here in person, he's slunking around, doesn't make a lot of noise. Now he's just unmuting himself whenever he feels like throwing in jibes and comments, and he's not being corrected. He's done this while Mr. Brock is speaking. You've not even addressed him at all when he interrupts and just throws things. If we were doing that in here, you would say something. He's abusing the virtual format, and I think he needs to be corrected, Madam Chair.
So thank you for your comments, and I do recognize members are now waiting to be acknowledged, whether it's virtually or in the room. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much. No, they've all been acknowledging that. So Mr. Lawrence, and I do see virtually Mr. Couric, you'd be next, and then I see Madame Dillon après vous. Alors, Mr. Lawrence, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As you rightfully pointed out, it is your responsibility to maintain order and decorum, and that looks increasingly difficult. And so you have my condolences with respect to that responsibility. You rightfully called me out earlier for talking too loud with Mr. Drouin, and you were completely within your rights, and I apologize for causing any distraction. But I will say that there has been as Mr. Giovanni has said and Mr. Brock has said, there has been a pattern of Mr. Maloney and Mr. Biddle creating fake points of order that are equally, if not more distracting than having a sidebar conversation with a colleague. And so I have seen in other committees, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job, that would be presumptuous, but I've certainly seen in other committees where there is a pattern, the chair will make sure that the individual starts with a rule that they're citing that's a point of order. And before they are allowed to commence, they have to cite that rule. And I think that that might be a fair practice. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Mr. Couric.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And you know, I look forward to continuing to hear what Mr. Brock has to say, and the specificity in which he is addressing the very important issues related to Bill C-270 and the motion that Mr. Maloney had moved, which is actually on the agenda. But I would just note, Madam Chair, that in terms of departure from the standing orders, the continual introduction of issues of debate into the conversation related to the conversation at hand by, in particular, members from the Liberal side. I would just maybe suggest, Madam Chair, through you, that those members simply put their names on the speaking list, and I look forward to hearing from them when their name comes up on the speaking list. And I would just ask, if I could, for you to outline again for the committee who exactly is on that speaking list. I know there's been a little bit of discussion and people getting back and forth, and I know there was some discussion as to whether a member who is present, although not a regular member of the committee, if we can just have some clarity in that, because as I know you appreciate and respect, being able to have clarity and act with precision is key for the smooth functioning of these parliamentary proceedings.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Couric. I'll come back to you. I have Madame Dillon, and I know she's been very patient. So, j'apprécie beaucoup vos soutiens. Alors.
Thank you for your support. You have the floor, Madame Dillon.
I just wanted to raise this, and I've been noticing it for the last 2 hours, that the Conservative members are talking down to you. They are talking aggressively to you, making insinuations about how you are managing the committee. Under the guise of polite suggestion, they are saying, may we suggest, may we do this, may we tell you how to do that. This is very, very condescending towards you, and you pointed it out, and I was going to before you did, because it's really, really disturbing to see that a bunch of male conservative colleagues are telling you how to manage the committee. Shame on you. I am sick and tired.
Look how woke this stupid bitch is. So fake, man. What did the Conservatives do there that was wrong? Diab is a floundering mess. And they're pointing out that she's not controlling the meeting. Then this woke, I don't even know what this chick's name is. She's never in the house.
Tired of hearing this, and yes, you are surrounded only by males, and sorry if I'm getting loud, sorry to the interpreters. This needs to stop. If we're gonna do this for the next 9 hours, bring it on. Who cares? I don't want to hear anyone talking. Points of order are points of order. That's up to you to qualify them, but you're not even being allowed to listen to them. So bon courage, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madame Dillon, and I wish you a good recovery. I know you're not feeling well this week. So are we finished with the points of orders now? And I do appreciate things. I do appreciate everybody trying to work together again so that we can continue on with the meetings. So let's, why don't we take a 2-minute break?
I was going to ask that.
Thank you. So we'll suspend for 2 minutes.
All right, gang. So they're taking a couple of minutes away. I don't think they come back for very long.
Continue on with the meetings. So let's, why don't we take a 2-minute break?
I was going to ask that.
Thank you. So we'll suspend.
They don't come back, guys. Yeah, that's where that meeting ends. Weird. Sorry, gang. Yeah, so that's the show. We're going to wrap up. I can't believe they're off again this week, but they're off again this week. Hoping that there'll be a committee or two, because sometimes they do have them in the off weeks. The Liberals are panicking, and the more that they panic, the more they use their go-to tactics, which aren't working anymore. Like woke, this is 2024, man. Woke is a 2018 thing. Nobody gives a shit about that stuff anymore. Like golden rule, that's it. Be a good person, treat people the way you want to be treated. Simple. But they have this woke stuff telling everybody what to think, censoring everybody. It's a lot. It's a lot, guys. Anyhow, thank you all so much for hanging out. I'm really sleepy. I've got to run. Got to zip up and see my mom. And that is it. I appreciate everybody hanging out today. If you've got an issue with someone in the chat, take it outside the chat. Don't bring that to this chat room. It doesn't fit. That's it. I'm not gonna repeat myself. That's it. That's unpleasant doing that. Just doesn't work. Anyhow, gang, it's a fun show. Gotta run. We're gonna head on out. What are we gonna show here? Yeah, we'll do this. All right, gang. Thanks a lot for watching. Ehren, Canadian Looney. Like, share, subscribe, get notified. And we'll be back tomorrow. Same time, same place. We'll see what we're going to dig up. I do kind of like the weeks when they aren't in session, just because we can find something interesting to show. That's it. Thank you all for watching. Like, share, subscribe. Great to have you back, Sheila. Dimebags, Mr. Pickles, Captain Kirk, the rest of the crew. Thank you very much for joining up, Cecilia Crocker. Welcome to the gang. Here we go. Canadian federal politics, Canadian loony style. We're out, guys. Have a good evening. Catch you tomorrow.
You should do exercises. That's important to our good health. And friends, tomorrow we are going to be visiting with a fisherman who will tell us about his very enjoyable hobby. Now, I would like to see you all through our magic mirror. Romper bumper, stomper boo, tell me, do. Magic mirror, please tell me today, did all of my friends have fun at play? I see all of my friends in Alberta. It's nice to see you. And I see Dan and Vivian. I see Marlon and Mona. I see Catherine and Harley. I see Anne and Elizabeth and Jane. I see Bert and Nicole, and I see you too. I hope to see you tomorrow, right here in Romper Room.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Bing bong, tick tock, bebop boom.
Kick off your weekend with exciting CFL action when the Edmonton Eskimos tackle the BC Lions in Vancouver. Tomorrow night at 10:30 on CFTO TV.
Ding dong, knock knock, hey daddy do. Tip tap, pitter pat, granny cat too. Rooty toot, kimble, loopy loo. Boppity stoppity, romper room and friends.
It's time for a change in this country, my friends. A real change.
WTF. Here, here.